Hello and welcome back to the NUFC opinion blog for the second instalment of the NUFC Nostalgia series. Now this week we'll be looking back to 2016 on the 11th of March when Rafa Benitez was appointed as Newcastle United manager. Now this came after the sacking of Steve McClaren just a few days earlier, and the club was in 19th place at the time after a very poor run of fixtures from McClaren. He'd only won two games in 12 since the 19th of December, and McClaren in the end only won 6 out of 28 Premier League games for Newcastle United. His final game was in a 3-1 defeat to Bournemouth, and I was at the game personally, and the atmosphere was toxic. There was a lot of booing at full time, and the run Newcastle had been on had obviously been pretty dreadful, and it had just caught up, and it was time for McClaren to go. In fact, quite similar to the run Steve Bruce was on over December and January of this season. Benitez, who was given a 3-year deal at the time, wouldn't win, in fact, until the 16th of April, over a month after he was appointed. But Newcastle did remain unbeaten for the rest of the season with wins over Swansea, Crystal Palace, and of course the 5-1 at Spurs on the final day. The atmosphere for that game was quite spectacular, actually, seeing as we were going down. There was quite a feel-good factor about things. It was such a big win on the final day, and of course Benitez would go on to stay, and the feel-good factor did continue, although we were in the Championship, I would say. We did also get points against City, Liverpool and Aston Villa, which did see the 6-game unbeaten run at the end of the season. As I mentioned, there was quite a feel-good factor around the place. And of course, Newcastle did finish 2 points from safety, just behind Sunderland in 17th, of course. Not the ideal positioning. However, as mentioned, Benitez did go on to stay, as I'm sure you all know. Of course, he managed us through the Championship, where we were crowned champions. We had a few very good tussles with Brighton, amongst others. And Benitez did stay until June 2019, where he left due to supposed disagreements with owner Mike Ashley, which we all know transfer money was a big part of that. In contrast, McClaren did have a lot to spend. I think he spent 80 million in that season, and 30 million of which was on Shelvey, Townsend and Henri Saivet, who came in the January window. And of course, we hoped they would galvanise the team, push them on to do more, but it wasn't quite enough in the end. I think Rafa did come in a little bit too late. As we've seen with Steve Bruce this season, there's been a lot of uproar, a lot of discontent, people wanting him to leave a little bit earlier, just in case, to give a new manager potentially a bit of time to get things started. And as seen with Rafa, it took him 4 games to win his first game over a month, as I said. So you've got to give these new managers time, and unfortunately for Benitez, there just wasn't enough of that. Of course, Townsend and Shelvey, 2 of the most notable signings in that window. Townsend in particular, I do remember a few fantastic performances from him towards the end of the season. And it was such a shame that we had to let him go. We also had to let Wijnaldum go as well, amongst others who were 2 big players, and some also that had been brought in by Steve McClaren. Of course, McClaren, as we all know, maybe wasn't the best appointment. There was the previous season, he had also had a strong backing financially from Derby, but he did fail to reach the Championship playoff. So he came in with a little bit of a cloud above his head, I would say. And of course, the results on the pitch weren't what we'd hoped for. At the time, incidentally, only Joe Kinnear and John Carver had a worse win percentage as Newcastle manager when they'd taken charge of more than 10 games. And that does go to show that McClaren's time wasn't the best, shall we say, at Newcastle. And of course, Benitez, when he came in, as I said, there was a very much a feel-good factor around the place. Of course, to get a manager of that calibre in was something that was pretty impressive. Of course, under Ashley's regime, we haven't really had too many high-quality managers, especially not of Benitez's standard. So, of course, it was such a shame that we couldn't keep him, as we all know. And, of course, the discontent's continued a little bit since he's left. But in that period, there was a bit of a feel-good factor. We played some good football and had some very good results. And of course, the 11th of March, when he came in, was quite a good day for Newcastle fans, as I'm sure we all know. Once again, please get in touch on the socials if you have any thoughts on Benitez or McClaren for that matter. Thank you very much for watching, and how are the lads?